Hello and welcome. My name is Jennifer Oliver, and I'm the president of the Dearborn Heights League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan national organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. Membership is open to everyone aged 16 years or older. Tonight's candidate forum is presented and produced as a public service by the League of Women Voters. It is an opportunity for candidates to express their views related to their candidacy. The League of Women Voters does not certify the accuracy of any candidate's responses to questions, and voters are encouraged to fact-check information shared at the forum. This forum is being conducted virtually through the Zoom platform on June 28th, and the recording that you are watching has been released in its entirety. There are 3 candidates on the Democratic Party ballot in the August 2nd primary election for the office of 3rd District State Representative, and 2 have agreed to participate in this forum. There is no competition in the Republican Party primary because only 1 candidate is on the ballot. Voters in this election may only vote in one party's primary, either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. This is true throughout the primary ballot. You must pick one party or the other. No crossover voting is allowed. The boundaries of the Michigan House of Representatives 3rd District are new this year, beginning with the August 2nd primary. The new 3rd District includes parts of Dearborn and parts of Detroit. If you're unsure about your district, contact your local city clerk's office or visit the Secretary of State's Michigan Voter Information Center at mi.gov/vote to find your polling place and all of your districts. A mailing from your clerk that clarifies your districts should arrive soon in your mailbox or may have arrived already. For additional information on today's candidates, please visit the League's online voter guide at vote411.org. The League of Women Voters wants every eligible voter to inform themselves and to vote. If you want to vote absentee, contact your city clerk's office. If you aren't sure whether you are registered to vote or whether your absentee ballot has been issued or recorded, please visit mi.gov/vote. Now, I'm delighted to introduce the moderator of tonight's forum, Lorelei Muniz.
Thank you, Jennifer. Welcome, candidates, and welcome, viewers. We are grateful that you're here. Today is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. We are recording this program in its entirety via the Zoom platform. As always, the League of Women Voters is not responsible for the views expressed by the candidates. The candidates have agreed to the following. The first candidate to speak has been determined randomly. Thereafter, the order of responses will be rotated. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and 1 minute to answer each question. We will end with each candidate having 1 minute to make a final statement. The timekeeper, Patricia Yoakum, will give 15-second warnings to clue the candidates to bring their answers to a close, and will raise a card and say stop to notify the candidates when their time expires. The questions were determined by a league committee convened for that purpose. 850 high school seniors contributed their priority issues, and the committee used those issues to develop questions. Time will not allow for all the questions to be asked. If you have more questions, we encourage you to contact the candidates, whose information is available at vote411.org. The August 2nd Democratic primary election for the office of 3rd District State Representative will determine which candidate will run against the Republican candidate on November 8th. The candidates are Alabas Farhat, Sam Lukman, Khalil Othman. Mr. Othman was not able to attend this forum, but sent a statement to be read by me after the candidates who are present have made their opening statements. The candidates have been asked to make a 2-minute opening statement, and we will begin with Mr. Farhat.
So, thank you so much. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this together today. In every election, it's so important that we continue to remain involved in our politics, especially here at the local level, where I believe real work is done. My name is Alabas Farhat. I'm running to represent the 3rd Michigan House District in Lansing. The new district needs somebody who is going to be a unifier, who will bring people together, who can work across the aisle and also work across city boundaries to deliver big wins for a lot of the issues that our cities have been facing. I'm that person. I've been committed to working with counties. Well, by the time at the county, working with the 43 communities and bringing people together, that was my job. And I'll continue to bring that same energy to Lansing. I have a bachelor's in public health, so I understand how important it is to have people at the center of our politics and our policies. And with my master's in public policy that I'll be completing this coming fall, I look forward to using these tools to deliver and continue to deliver for the residents of the 3rd District and to give them the kind of leadership that they deserve and that they've come to expect, right? A leader who's active, who's accessible, who'll be bold, and who can stand up to the issues and for the issues they care about.
Thank you. Ms. Lukman?
Thank you to the League for having us and giving us the opportunity. When people ask me why I'm running or what makes me qualified, I ask them, what do you look for in a person to represent you? Do you want someone who has a track record, who shows up when you need them, someone who has a backbone to stand up for what's right, someone who has experience at all levels of government and won't be learning from scratch? I am that person. I'm someone who's been involved for decades, attending school board meetings, commission meetings, city council meetings. I've been representing the little guy up to the state and federal level. I've been a fighter for residents in all issues. I had the tenacity, strength, and moral compass to call out wrong when I see it, no matter what the results might be. And who knows the ins and outs of the laws and contracts from all the research, time, and work that I've put in. And what have I achieved? What milestones have I reached? I've brought hundreds of trees to replace gray infrastructure. I've brought recreational grants to our cities, changes to permitting processes at the state level, awareness on air and water pollution. I've increased community engagement and education on issues that are important to them. I've served as an advocate for families with disabilities on innumerable nonprofits and organizations, and I've achieved real results. Why? Because I believe it's our civic duty, because I believe in doing what's right for others and giving a voice to the voiceless. I believe that we need to stop the pollution that's killing our neighbors and our families. I can't stand to see another pool or library close or another tire go flat from a pothole. I'm hopeful that this district can elect a woman of color for the first time to represent them, not just because of what I am, but because of my track record of public service for the last 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the statement that was submitted by Mr. Othman. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting such a forum and for all the good and outstanding work throughout the years. I apologize in advance that I could not make it tonight. Hello, 3rd District residents. Like millions of immigrants who came before me, my dream of a better life led me to America, where I settled in Dearborn almost 20 years ago. I had just gotten married, I had no money, no job, and didn't speak a word of English. My name is Khalil Othman, and today, by the grace of God, I'm a college graduate with a master's degree, a technology leader, entrepreneur, community servant, coach, teacher, homeowner, and proud husband and father. I'm able to do all these things, not because I'm great, but because God is great, and He blessed me by bringing me to America, land of greatness, a land with equal justice under the law, freedom of religion, and above all, a land where if you work hard and play by the rules, the sky is a limit for your dreams and aspirations. I'm running this grassroots campaign to serve you, the 3rd District resident, and not any special interest or the political establishment. Our district faces many challenges time and time again, whether it's repeated flooding that's devastated our neighborhoods, a crumbling infrastructure, high property taxes, and polluted environment. We deserve a government that is competent and accountable. It's time we have a champion who will fight for all residents, not just for the wealthy or those with political connections. A champion with demonstrated ability to solve problems, not just your typical politician who excels at talking and blaming others. Join me as we fight for cleaner air, reduced taxes, and better infrastructure. Let's unleash that pioneering and innovative spirit unique to our American DNA and make our district the greatest district in Michigan. And above all, let us unite our great city based on the love of God, country, and family. I kindly ask for your vote on Tuesday, August 2nd, or by absentee ballot. All right, so now we will begin with the questions. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer each question. So this spring, the League of Women Voters and Access visited 9 high schools in Dearborn, Dearborn Heights, and Inkster. We asked high school seniors, hundreds of them, about 850 in multiple classrooms, what were their top issues? Many of these questions are based on their concern and in their order of priority. We will begin with Ms. Luckman. Question number 1. 2 of the students' top 3 issues concerned gas prices and roads. If elected, what legislation would you support to address the price of gas and the condition of Michigan's roads?
So we all know the infrastructure in Michigan is crumbling, and quite frankly, there needs to be an increase in revenue in order to solve this, to add the money to fix the roads and the infrastructure. Now, there has been talk about creating a gas tax or increasing the sales tax or income or property taxes. I actually favor an increase in the income tax on the wealthiest in order to generate that revenue instead of taking it from the working class. So my plan is to introduce legislation that would increase the revenue that way and be able to fund our crumbling infrastructure. There are also a lot of different grants out there that I, as a resident, have been working with nonprofits that have we've achieved to bring green infrastructure to replace some of the gray infrastructure, and it's through other nonprofits or through federal grants. So there are grants out there that we can leverage as well that have not been utilized in the past. So my plan is, again, to have a tax that would increase it on the wealthiest instead of the working class. And then
Thank you.
go from there.
Mr. Farhat.
Yeah, that's an important question. I believe that Michigan's economic future is tied to our energy independence. How energy independent can we be as a state? To do that, we have to diversify from the same old non-renewable energy that we're using and slowly shift our economy to a renewable green economy, a green infrastructure. When we look at our roads and the impact that there is on them now, we have to look at Public Act 51, which decides and is the formula that decides how funding is allocated to roads throughout the state, right? Giving equal funding to a 2-lane road and up north and an 8-lane road down in Metro Detroit is not equitable. That is causing a huge bottleneck in the maintenance and the renovation of our roads in Michigan. More than just that, I personally wouldn't support increasing taxes at this time because our economy is throttling. Now, we can talk about increasing taxes on folks and on those who use our roads the hardest. Let's look at corporations like our Amazons, who can pay their fair share and pay into reconstruction of our roads.
Thank you. All right, so question number 2 that will go to Mr. Farhat first is the number 2 issue on the minds of hundreds of high school seniors we visited was abortion. What is your position on the issue of reproductive rights in Michigan?
Yeah, when we talk about Roe v. Wade, that's it, right? That's the question. Yeah, when we talk about Roe v. Wade, the quintessential argument about what Roe v. Wade means is, do women have a constitutionally protected right to abortion, right? And to me, fundamentally, I do believe that it's not government's place to interfere between the healthcare decisions of a woman and her healthcare provider, right? And so I believe that right, it should be a right that's protected. And then we begin the conversations on, okay, on what term and at what point. But fundamentally speaking, I do believe that women have a right to healthcare decisions as it pertains to their reproductive rights. I think that the backtracking on Roe v. Wade was a huge mistake by our Supreme Court. And I think that the legislature, we have a bill that's on the books from 1931 that makes abortion automatically illegal. I would look forward to repealing that law and to having one that's more equitable and more with the times, as they say.
Thank you. Ms. Luckman.
Thank you for the question. I feel as the repealing of Roe v. Wade is bigger than just the abortion issue. It's about women's rights to privacy, women not being viewed as property. So this is a major setback. And so my proposal is, once I get into the legislature, is to actually fight for that protection in Michigan to ensure that women's rights are protected, to repeal the law, the 1931 law, of course, but ensure that we have those protections in place. As a female, it hits home for me that this is something being regulated by men mostly, and not allowing women to have our rights to our bodies, to make those decisions. And it really hits home for me. So my plan, like I said, is to get into the legislature and make sure that Michigan protects its women, even if the federal government won't.
Thank you. So again, this next question will come to you, Ms. Luckman. Issue number 4 for the students was racism. Do you believe that Michigan has systemic racism issues? And if so, what would you do to address these?
I do believe there's systemic racism. It's not just Michigan, it's everywhere. So some of the things that I would propose for social justice issues are like defining a use of force and policing, defining when it can be used, defining banning chokeholds, requiring the reporting of incidents. These are things that other states have implemented. I'm a big researcher, and this is something that I like to do, is look at what's working in other parts of the country or elsewhere and try to implement them here. 3 years ago, I actually stood up to the Board of Education and requested that we have some kind of protection for people to be able to use their time to go to, take off for holiday during school and not be penalized by their professors. I've been fighting for this social equity for decades now. I'm still fighting it. I fought against pathways to prison just last year, and I'm fighting against ethnic intimidation in our schools just this year. So this isn't something that I'm just promising to people. This is a lifelong service that I've been doing for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat.
Thank you. So the reality is that, yes, there is systemic racism in our state. And how we approach it is twofold. One, by having policies that put people first and are equitable, and have those most impacted by these policies at the table when those decisions are being made. And then 2, by also having representation that's willing to go out of its way to educate, that's willing to go out of its way and inform, right? A lot of times that when we talk about systemic racism, folks don't realize it. They do not understand that certain housing practices may force marginalized groups out, because it's more than just policing. It's affordable housing. It's accessibility to healthcare and health providers. It's the kind of economic conditions and the kind of investments we allow to be driven into certain neighborhoods, right? And so tackling that requires an approach that brings everybody to the table. My time at Wayne County, we worked directly in the most impacted businesses, whether it were women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses, to make sure they could stay in business and survive the pandemic. And that's something I'm very proud of. And that's something I'll continue to do.
Thank you. So the education was issue number 5 for students. So we have a couple of questions on education. So for Mr. Farhat first, Tennessee has free community college for all students. The topic of student loans was in the top 15 concerns for high school students. As a state representative, how would you address the issue of making higher education more affordable?
I love this question. So the too long to be very quick, on my website, you'll find our full education platform there, where we highlight actually our concepts for student loan forgiveness for teachers who go into the teaching profession. I'm a big fan and big supporter of having free community college for our students and for high school graduates, and also expanding vocational training, expanding the high school to college pipeline, and also the college to job pipeline. We need to make sure that folks who do go to college are able to get a good, dignified job, and that we address these things by having an increased emphasis on having school resource aides and having counselors who can help students navigate the FAFSA. For me, it's about making sure that our students have every opportunity possible and can afford that there should not be a means test. There should not be a price barrier to unlocking the potential of each student. They should be able to go to any level of education that they are qualified to go to.
Thank you. Ms. Luckman.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Tennessee has free community college for all students. The topic of student loans was in the top 15 concerns for high school students. As a state representative, how would you address the issue of making higher education more affordable?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Abbas on this one, that community college should at least be free. I definitely agree as well that we should have retention, recruitment incentives for certain fields like teaching, tuition reimbursements for those, for future educators or police officers. These are jobs that are necessary and require incentives for people to go into them. So working in the schools and being a mother of children in the school system right now, I'm a stakeholder, and this is a very important issue to me. Over the last couple of years, I actually sat down one day, took a day off work, and read 160 pages on the Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education to teach myself and become a pro bono advocate for students with special needs. I aim at increasing the per pupil allocation in the school, in the state. I also want to increase supplemental funding for at-risk students, and ensure that these kids receive the type of education and resources they need.
Thank you. So again, directed to you first, Ms. Lukman. Should public money be used to fund for-profit K through 12 schools? Why or why not?
No, I don't believe that they should. And the reason is because our public school system needs as much help as we can get. If you do that, we're looking at people leaving the public school system. My aim is to strengthen the resources and the amount of funding for public schools so that people are able to get a free and appropriate education that is quality. So I don't believe in moving funding to for-profit schools at all. And I'm going to be fighting against that as well.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat?
You know, there's when I hear about moving funding from a public school to a for-profit school, I can't help but get very disappointed in our government, because that's the exact opposite of what we should be doing. We should be looking at increasing every dollar we can to our public schools. We should be looking to increase the compensation we offer our teachers. We should look to increase these services that our schools are offering. For too long, the motto has been expect more while paying less in our government. And to me, that's been a failure that unfortunately has snowballed into what we see today, where a record number of teachers are leaving our public schools and they're leaving the profession. You know, my campaign is endorsed by the American Federation of Teachers and the Michigan Education Association. And I'm proud to have the teachers and the educators of the state backing us. And I can't help but say this now, that I will back them in Lansing and make sure that they have the resources they need, because truly our children are the future. And every investment we make in them is an investment well made, and one that I look forward to growing and expanding. Again, on my website at votefarhat.com, you'll see our plan for increasing.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Farhat, this goes to you first. Guns were the #9 issue for students. Does Michigan have a gun violence problem? And if so, what measures would you support to alleviate this problem? If not, why do you believe that? And the second part of this question is, have you or would you accept donations from a gun lobbying group? And please explain. You're muted.
So to answer the second question first, would I accept or have I have not accepted any money from gun lobbying groups, nor would I. In fact, the NRA sent me a questionnaire, I think about 6 months ago when I ran in January, and they're still waiting on a response. Because to be candid, you know, for me, I don't think that we need to increase the number of gun sales. Gun violence is a problem in our state. Gun violence takes many forms. It's in the form of school shooting, but it's also in the form of breaking and enterings. It's in the form of larceny. It's in the form of the crime that we see throughout our state. So yes, there is an issue. And what we have to do is we have to look at increasing and expanding sensible gun buyback programs for folks on the street who want to turn in their guns, who no longer want them. We have to look at gun literacy and gun safety training to making sure that folks who do want to buy a gun legally and who do have a gun know how to properly handle and store it. And we have to look at the certification and maybe raising the limit to 21 instead of 18. Things like mandatory background checks are important, ensuring that sensible and good gun owners can still buy guns as well.
Thank you. Ms. Lukman,
I support anything that would require background checks on all gun owners, a ban on military-style assault rifles, closing the gun show loophole, even if it's only at the state level. If I do make it, I aim at launching a See Something, Say Something campaign aimed at domestic terrorism. I also would support implementing licensing and training requirements on gun ownership that include a waiting period, much in the same way that Canada does, to ensure that if you are capable of owning a license, then you are educated on what it takes to get that gun and how to utilize it and the safety requirement. And additionally, I also want to ensure that people with domestic violence records do not get access to guns, even if at a gun show or anywhere else. So my aim is that we do have a gun problem here in Michigan and across the U.S., but my aim is to ensure that we in Michigan do prevent that kind of sort of thing from our state, from happening in our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to take a moment to take a breath and get a glass of water. And you guys are doing great with the rapid fire questions. So this is about the halfway point or a little bit more. So congratulations.
You all are also doing awesome. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You guys are doing great. These are some awesome questions. These high schoolers are really putting us to the test.
So this question will be directed towards Ms. Luckman first. Climate change was issue 11 out of 50 issues for the students. What are some of the next steps that Michigan needs to take to address climate change?
So I've been an environmental activist for decades. I mean, that's my forte. That's how most people know me. Because I'm a stakeholder, because I've lived in the area where the factories are for over 30 years. Last year, I proposed a plan to bring solar panels to Dearborn using brownfield grants to Abdullah Hamoud, and the mayor is implementing it as we speak. As a state rep, I want to provide more grants to low-income families to help them buy electric vehicles and solar panels in order for them to get off of the reliance on utility companies, and to remove the solar cap, which is another piece of legislation that I would support, so that they can earn revenue for the energy generated. I wish to see more penalties and remediation for violations of the Clean Air Act and PFAS contamination. One of the things I've done as a resident is I've taken it upon myself to launch PFAS education seminars across 3 different cities. I've also taken it upon myself to issue a notice of violation or notice to sue for enforcement of the Clean Air Act against a local steel mill. I want 100%. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat.
Some of the major steps that our state has to take, like I said earlier, are shifting our energy consumption. We have to shift our economy and our energy consumption to being more green and to be using and focusing on more renewables. More than just that, we have to look at updating our water infrastructure and the way that we maintain our water, the way we clean our water. PFAS is a real problem that we do have here in the state of Michigan. We are the Great Lakes state, and yet whether it's the erosion of the lakes themselves or the contaminations that we allow to go in them, we are not doing a good job maintaining our Great Lakes. And that's a top priority for me, is ensuring that our state can move towards clean energy, whether it's Marathon Refinery, and we phase out refineries such as that in the state as we continue to replace them with clean energy. You know, I'll tell you in the last question you asked, if any of us have ever accepted any money from a gun lobbyist, I'll proudly say right now on the record that both Consumers Energy and DTE have offered to donate to our campaign, and both have been turned down. I will not take a single dollar from those who continue to pollute our community.
Thank you. So Mr. Farhat, this question comes to you. First, issue number 8 for the students was healthcare. What role does the state government play in healthcare? And do you propose or support any changes?
Yes, big time. Our state healthcare must adapt and continue to offer lower drug prices for retirees and for those on state healthcare. We have to look at increasing preventative screenings. We have to look at offering and continue to expanding Medicare and Medicaid in the state of Michigan. For me, I look at our healthcare in the state, and unfortunately, it is a national problem, right? I am a proponent of universal healthcare. I believe that it is a fundamental right of every individual to be able to access healthcare and to have how their healthcare needs addressed by a medical professional. At the state, we can continue to offer and expand these services through Medicaid and Medicare expansion. We can look at having a set fee scheduling for hospitals so folks aren't getting hit with a surprise bill every time they go and see their physician or have an emergency room visit. And we can look at making Michigan any provider state where folks can go to any provider they choose to without penalty of going out of network. Michigan is one of the few states that is not an any provider state. We have to look at changing that.
Time.
Thank you. Ms. Lukman?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Issue number 8 for the students was healthcare. What role does the state government play in healthcare? And do you propose or support any changes?
Yeah, so for healthcare, I believe, much like clean air, clean water, that it is a fundamental and basic human right. I believe that everybody should be able to access healthcare without having to worry about the bills that might come in later. Even if it's on a state-by-state basis, I believe that this should happen in Michigan. Everybody should have the right to access preventative care as well as emergency care as needed without that fear of how much it's going to cost them. Yes, Michigan does have a role, and we can. It might seem like it's a big change or it's drastic, but we can propose those changes. We can make those changes. It just requires people like me, people who have these ideas, to get into the legislature and propose them and make those changes. Everybody should be able to access healthcare without that fear. So that is where my position is on it, and will continue to be my position on it. Thank you.
Thank you. So this next question comes to you again.
Mhm.
Immigration was 15th for the students in Dearborn and Dearborn Heights.
Mhm.
What is your position on allowing a person, regardless of immigration status, to obtain an identification card or a driver's license?
So I don't believe that we are supposed to be acting as ICE as a state. If somebody needs to work in the state, somebody needs to drive in the state, they should be able to get an ID. Penalizing people in that sense with not allowing them to have access to identification or driving is not the answer to our immigration problem. If somebody gets pulled over without a driver's license, having them get arrested for that reason is not the answer to the immigration problem. So I don't believe that the state should be penalizing people or immigrants. You cannot solve a national problem by removing methods of identification or driving. It's actually safer to have people applying for driver's license and testing and going through the proper methods than it is to deny them and have them do it illegally.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think we have to be able to ensure that folks who are in this country, regardless of status, have the ability to access an ID, have the ability to access a driver's license, because they're already here and they're contributing to our economy in more ways than we really can track. All right, whether it's them paying into the taxes, they're contributing to our economy, working jobs that help ensure our state continues to move forward. For me, at the national level, I do believe we have to reform our immigration pipeline and make it easier, and also giving people a pathway to citizenship for folks who are already here. But folks who are here in the state of Michigan should be able to seek the ID and get an ID regardless of that status. The city of Detroit has recently rolled out a program very similar to what we were discussing now, and I would look forward to seeing that expanded to other cities as well. I think it's important that having identification makes everybody safer. It allows individuals to continue to travel, to secure employment, and to help ensure that they're able to contribute to their community.
Thank you. And again, back to you.
Mhm.
According to the 2020 census, the percentage of people living in poverty in Wayne County is 20%, significantly higher than the state average, which is 12.6%. What is the role of the Michigan Legislature in addressing the issue of poverty?
For me, during my time working at Wayne County, that was one of the biggest issues that we focused on, is how do we help address the housing insecurities? How do we help get folks back into our economy? How do we get folks back into a job that they're able to have a dignified wage in? And so Michigan's job is this, the state of Michigan's job is this, really. It's to look at making investments, whether it's job training centers or investing in resource centers, resource fairs, job fairs, help attract these major employers who are here to employ and to invest. That's one of the biggest things that we can do, is investing in neighborhoods, investing where people are, moving investment away from just only certain pockets of the state, and ensuring that folks have opportunity. You know, during my time in the county, one saying was very common, is that talent is found everywhere. It's equally found, but opportunity isn't. And so ensuring that there's plentiful opportunity in Wayne County is one of the state's largest and most important jobs.
Thank you. Ms. Lukman.
So as I mentioned before, I favor increasing the income tax on the wealthiest in order to generate revenue and in order to give the middle class and lower income class a break. I support increasing rental assistance programs to help families facing evictions. I support legislation to stop water shutoffs and predatory lending with those payday grants. I support grants for renewable energy, as I mentioned, to low-income families so that they can generate revenue instead of paying utility bills, and for electric vehicles so they can save on gas. I believe that a free public education should be extended to everybody, at least through the community college, which would help uplift those communities out of poverty. I also believe in giving support to the small business community with more incentives and programs to support them so that that can uplift the community. So I also support in Michigan increasing the minimum wage. All of these policies that I support are meant to uplift communities out of poverty.
Thank you. So for our next question, back at you, Ms. Lukman, is what is your stance regarding legislation on women's rights, which was issue number 10, gender equality, issue number 19, and LGBTQ+ rights, issue 20 from the students?
So I am in favor of the ERA, which the Equal Rights Amendment, which was proposed several decades ago and has yet to pass. I would love to see something like that implemented at the state. I support equality for everybody, regardless of what's happening at home between your four walls. That's none of my business and none of anyone else's business, to be frank. Everybody should be treated with human dignity and respect. And I do support the LGBTQ community. In fact, I was the only candidate to attend their forum and meet and greet a month ago. So I am a supporter of everybody, and I am a lover of everybody, and I hope that I do get elected in order to pass some kind of measures to ensure there is equality for everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat.
Ensuring that we codify, we put in place the protections, and that we put in place the rights, and we enshrine these rights in laws, whether it be for women, for folks of varying genders, and of any sexual orientation, is crucial. It's crucial. It matters to me that we have laws that protect folks, and that we have laws that are reflective of the type of state that we want to be. Our laws are a reflection of our values. And for me, one of the largest values that I have is having compassion, is having care, is being a state that is welcoming and inclusive. And our laws must reflect those values. They have to, because as a state, we have been a leader in more ways than one. And in this way, in rights and civil rights protections, we must continue to be a leader. And that's something I look forward to championing in Lansing, ensuring that folks feel welcome, they feel protected, and they feel safe in our state.
Thank you. Foster care was issue number 16 out of the top 50 issues. What do you believe is the most important issue or challenge in Michigan's foster care system? And how would you address this issue?
Thank you. Foster care in the state of Michigan is a very underfunded segment of our state's services that we offer to displaced children. We have to ensure that we're doing more to give these children opportunity. Again, it comes back to opportunity. What, if there isn't a chance for them to be adopted, if there isn't a chance for them to for someone to have guardianship of them. What kind of opportunity are they being offered while in the care and in custody of the institutions that they are being entrusted with? And so we have to revisit both funding levels, but also the regulations and laws by which those institutions are allowed to operate with. You know, for me, it's heartbreaking that any family should be broken up and that any child should be up for adoption. But ensuring that they're protected, that they're safe, and that their future is not suspect or jeopardized or not to its fullest potential, something I'm committed to and I take very personal. Because every child deserves to have the ability to live to their fullest.
Thank you. Ms. Lukman.
Regarding foster care, you know, we recently had a judge issue a statement that Michigan's foster care system was devastating. And I agree, there needs to be more data tracking. There needs to be more oversight. We have thousands of children who still need adoptive parents. There has to be some kind of, you know, additional legislation or oversight. Even though it's a bureaucracy, there has to be oversight of the CPS system, ensuring that these kids are not mistreated, which has been the case. So Michigan's foster care system does need a lot of work. I'm committed to helping those kids, ensuring that they receive families that will care for them and that will not mistreat them. There has to be more vetting of those adoptive families, not just taking kids in for the, you know, unfortunately the paychecks. So I am committed to ensuring that we totally overhaul the child fostering system in Michigan.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, back to Ms. Lukman first, is please explain where you see opportunities for Democrats and Republicans to find common ground on the very serious issues facing our state.
So I think that Democrats and Republicans can all agree on, at this point, on the climate change and how it's devastating Michigan. While it may be an issue of disagreement in other states, here in Michigan, we've seen flooding, we've seen weather impacts of climate change, and there certainly can be agreement on how we can fix our crumbling infrastructure in order to be able to be more resilient to those things. That's probably the biggest thing. We've seen people in my district affected by the flooding last year, and there are a lot of solutions that are easily agreeable on both sides. I think there are also things like the voting rights that we can agree on in order to ensure equity to everybody, to enable them to vote early and vote as easily as possible. So those are some of the things that I see us agreeing on and crossing the aisle on. Primarily, though, it would be environmental issues and cleaning the air and the water, which has become #1 issue in our state at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Farhat.
Thank you for that. You know, I just want to go back for a second to that question we asked, because it's a very powerful question. That's our state's foster care system. Now, I used to spend a lot of time volunteering at Vista Maria, and I was mentally recalling those moments, and I think that's an area, our foster care system, where Republicans and Democrats alike can come together and put aside partisan disagreements for the benefit of children. Truly, I believe that looking at those investments is something where we can find a common ground. The second one is our public schools. Now, I think everyone can agree fundamentally that our schools are in dire need of new investment, whether it's putting AC and heating that works year round at every school. That's a top issue. Whether it's attracting and retaining new teachers. Now, that is the question, I think, of this upcoming legislative cycle, is our public schools and what kind of future are we handing over to our children? Our infrastructure is a critical aspect of that as well, and flooding is an important issue. But those three things compounded is, what is the future? What is the legacy that we hand on to the next generation?
Thank you. So this is our last question, and it's directed first to you, Mr. Farhat. What are your legislative priorities?
Yeah. So for me, if I had to boil them to three things, my first one would be our public schools, securing new investment, bringing teachers back into the profession, and ensuring our children have places that have sufficient after-school programs, that have teachers who are enthusiastic and excited to be there, and buildings and schools that can accommodate for these sorts of things to happen, whether it's AC and air conditioning. The second one is going to be our environment, making sure that we continue and that we expand and protect our Great Lakes. We have clean water to drink, great air to breathe, and ensuring that every individual can feel safe in their home without the negative drawbacks and consequences of corporate pollution. And the third one is going to be our infrastructure, investing in new infrastructure that can build, where we can build the economy of Michigan's future today, one where we have roads with much less potholes, hopefully, where we have infrastructure that's able to sustain us as a state, and the one that where it really can own up to the title of being the state that put the world on wheels, right? Right now, you probably have a wheel short.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Lukman.
The way I view it is in terms of priority is what is a human's basic needs? Clean air, clean water, and then safety, a shelter. So my priority is the environment and infrastructure. They go hand in hand. We've seen people who, and I'm personally affected by it. My son has high blood levels in his blood. My family is riddled with tumors and cancers. So cleaning up the environment, replacing some of the utility companies with renewable energies, that's a priority for me. Ensuring that people have clean water that won't be shut off is another priority for me. Just looking at how Flint suffered over the last 8 years, it's been devastating just as a mother to think that, your child or you cannot have clean water. And then thirdly, I would look at ensuring that their safety. Gun safety is a big issue for me. I don't want to send my kid to school some days because I'm afraid of what might happen to him. So I want to ensure that there's safety in our schools and for the public. And then shelter as well. I want to make sure that there's a rental system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
It's now time for the candidates to make a 1-minute closing statement. And we'll begin with you, Ms. Lukman.
Thank you. So I have mentioned that I've been doing the work for decades. It's been a struggle to get places and change the laws and change the things as an outsider. But once I do get into office, I'm hopeful that I will be able to make those changes from the inside out. Being a female, I understand a lot of the talk right now with Roe v. Wade, and I've experienced it personally as a woman of color who is running a campaign. It is so much harder to get endorsed, to raise funds, and to campaign and win an election, but I'm going to do it with your support. And I'm asking everybody to go to votesamlukman.com to learn a little bit about my campaign. And I urge you to go and vote for me, either early voting or by absentee ballot or on August 2nd. Thank you.
Mr. Farhat.
Once again, I want to thank the league for putting this together. For me, I'm proud to say our campaign is one that's focused on doing the work. And not just the work of assembling policy briefs and putting together talking points, but the work of knocking doors and meeting folks where they are, the work of going neighborhood to neighborhood, door to door, and having those conversations with folks. For me, my background as a policy analyst, I think gives me an opportunity to understand these issues and to deliver for residents on day one. I've had a number of conversations on people's porches, and I hear the hurt they're going through, whether it's paying over $5 a gallon for gas, or it's the quality of their children's public schooling. For me, I take those issues very seriously. And that's why I'm committed to being ready on day one. And I'm honored to carry with me the endorsements of a number of organizations, whether it's the AFL-CIO, UAW, the Michigan Education Association, or a great number many. I encourage everybody to please visit votefarhat.com for more information. I'd be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Dearborn Heights and the communities we serve, we want to thank the candidates for participating in the forum. We appreciate the commitment it takes to run for office, and we would like to thank you for seeking to serve. To voters, please remember to vote. The polls will be open on Tuesday, August 2nd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots are available from the city clerk's office. You can request an absentee ballot for any reason. In-person voting at the clerk's office has begun. It is possible to visit the clerk's office during office hours to request an absentee ballot, vote in the office, and turn it in all in one visit. For more information, please visit vote411.org and mi.gov/vote. The forum has ended. Thank you.
Thank you.